Good evening, Dumelang, Molweni, Huyeno. It's so wonderful to be in a room full of so much positive energy. Thank you, Louise, for the leadership you have given to this initiative. I believe that you are living the dream that is possible for our country, and you are inspiring so many leaders across our country who are charged with one of the most sacred duties, which is to create an environment where our children can learn and grow, and where the noble profession can again become truly noble. I'm a daughter of two teachers, and so tonight I can see them smiling because you all are doing such a magnificent job to vindicate the efforts that have gone into creating this free South Africa that unfortunately has continued to fail so many of our children. But your efforts demonstrate that we can turn this education system around. What it needs is not a little bit of reform here and there. It needs total transformation, as exemplified by the total transformation that each one of you seem to be effecting in your schools. It's against that background that I want to talk to you about how we can elevate this energy. The energy that you are putting into your schools is energy that needs to be driving a wider transformation of our society. I need someone to explain to me how we as South African citizens, which is the equivalent of shareholders of a very, very important company. And unlike companies where if it fails, you can actually chop it up and sell it off, with a failing country, you're stuck. It's the only one you have, and therefore all of us here as citizens are called to a very high duty. And that is the calling that has led me. Someone was talking about being 60. I'm 64. And I have decided to go back into the trenches because our country needs us. It needs each one of you. We have a country that is the envy of many people. Show me a country that has the natural resources that we've got, the beauty that we have, whether you are in Durban or you are in Cape Town or you are in Magaliesburg. Show me a country with the diversity that we have. Show me a country with the energy and the determination of its people that are fully in display here tonight. And then explain to me how this country can fail to live the dream of being a country destined for greatness. What is missing? It's very easy to say what's missing is leadership. It's very easy to say what's missing is commitment to clean government. No. What's missing is you and I as the citizens of this country to do exactly what each of these principals who has been presenting here and their partners from business have been able to do in the microcosm of a school. We're talking about the school at the center of community. We're talking about it as a place where people grow and succeed and become the full potential that they were created to be. But what about the country as the place where each and every one of our children ought to grow up in safe, loved, fully supported to develop into the people that they can be? The very fact that Louise and all of you as partners to these principles had to go this extra mile is because something systemically has gone wrong. And I'm here tonight to invite you to join me and my colleagues. I know you have already read a beautiful message to Eugene. The important thing is that Eugene is not leaving the teaching profession. He's not leaving education. Eugene is simply going to be available to many more of South Africa's teachers, pupils, parents, and fellow citizens. The difficulty we are facing as citizens who have been missing in action is that we actually didn't quite understand that 1994 was not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a journey. And many of us checked out. Some went down under, others went shopping, and still many others went and sat on the beach in Camps Bay. The reality is there is no democracy anywhere in the world in which citizens are passive passengers. Any such democracy very quickly becomes a despotic fiefdom of their royal highnesses. All you need to do is to look just over the Limpopo. A beautiful country, equally well endowed, totally destroyed. Not by Uncle Bob, but by the people who were spectators to Uncle Bob's destructive actions. That's what destroyed Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe has got more educated people, more skilled people, more professionals than South Africa, even though it's got a smaller population, because they've got a better education system. They didn't fiddle with caps, with outcomes based, with this, that. They just got on with it. But why did we, as citizens of this country, watch whilst what little survived of the education system from the apartheid era was being systematically dismembered? Why did we become spectators to this destruction until a few years ago, for many and others, continued to fight in their own little corners without much support? At the end of the day, I believe that when we got to 1994, many of us were so exhausted, so deeply wounded, Others were simply overwhelmed by the moment. And I don't believe that there is a single South African who doesn't have work to do about what does it mean for me to be the citizen that I should be, to both assert my rights as well as exercise my responsibilities. But have you ever heard any emphasis anywhere, including our very well-renowned and very highly respected Independent Electoral Commission? They're supposed to educate for democracy, but what they do is to teach people where to put the cross. I don't think that's educating for democracy. And the monumental failure in educating for democracy is embarrassingly revealed by our own president, who said a few months ago he's very confused by why, having won such an overwhelming majority, he should now listen to Mr. and Mrs. Citizen. Why must someone who has not won an election participate in the governance process? He's confused. And he's supposed to be the guardian of our constitution. But worse, he's gone on to say that the governing party is the only party that understands deeply the destiny of the country. Be very afraid. Very afraid. What we have seen doesn't give us confidence about this destiny. We might just be looking for lifeboats. But it goes further, that actually the governing party is the parliament of the people. What? Did I hear correctly? I did. And remember, Uncle Bob these days talks about my Zimbabwe. So if you're not watching, there may be some consequences. But on a serious note, one of the monumental failures of this government, and by saying this government, I'm meaning successive governments since 1994, is fulfilling its very central role of managing the education system, which is the front and center of any society that needs and wants to succeed. The major reason, or reasons, for that failure is, first of all, we underestimated the success of Verwoerd in getting people to buy into the myth that people with short hair have got short brains. And so, when our government came into power, they were very afraid that that myth is going to be proved right. So please don't get kids to do math, don't get them to do science, don't get them to study history and geography. They're going to fail, and Verwoerd is going to, ooh. It's reality. How else do you explain that an adult can think that the only way of measuring success in a child is to challenge them so little, the bar so low, as Jonathan Jensen says, that you have to crawl to actually go through that? How can we, as citizens of a modern democracy in the year 2012, accept that 30% is a pass mark for any subject? It's an insult on the intelligence of our children. It's an insult on their potential to succeed. I want each one of you here as a principal to promise me, to commit, that you will never mark off a child as having passed unless they have got a minimum of 50%. We can do it. We are in charge. In a constitutional democracy, the citizens are in charge. We are the sovereigns. But if you accept that your children are only good enough for 30%, only good enough for 50%, unfortunately, children, as you have seen in your successful schools, they rise as high as your level of expectations. If you raise the level of expectations, you have seen here, 90%, 100%, it's possible. We can be better. Because right now, we are worse overall than Malawi, than Swaziland. What? Swaziland, yes. And so it is up to us as South Africans to say, are we content to remain as a country known for its failure to support its children to become the best that they can be? We cannot compete in the world. We are fortunate to have the youngest population is here in South Africa. Our average age is 24.9 years. The youngest anywhere in the world. Which means in terms of our potential to succeed, we've got the greatest resource base of all countries in the world. But if we don't turn those mouths, those ears, those noses, and those beautiful faces into the faces of success, then we're going to do what we are already doing. Call our children ticking time bombs. They do. They will become ticking time bombs unless we make them realize that they own this country and they can create a better future for this country. They are the generative force that can make South Africa a truly great country. Now, why is our government failing to manage the education system? Why is it possible that a trade union that is supposed to be a trade union of professionals can be a haven for the most unprofessional people and get away with it? How can you have a government go into partnership with a union that is undermining such a central function in a society? The only reason that happens is because you and I make it possible. We tolerate it. We don't express our outrage. There's been a lot of outrage about a spear. I don't know what that is about. Why is there no outrage about a failing school system? Why is there no outrage about the lack of professionalism of the majority of members of SADC? Not everyone, but the majority. Because education doesn't matter. And why doesn't it matter? Because the children that are in the public school system are regarded as less important than the children of the same people who are messing up this education system, who send their kids to private schools. This is an outrage. And I believe that we as citizens of South Africa ought to make that known to each and every one of our representatives and put them on notice that if this situation doesn't change, if they don't change their ways, come 2014, you have the power to say what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. That's where a citizen's outrage has to find expression. And I'm not talking about necessarily this or that party, but I'm asking you, particularly having heard people talk about values, if we are driving those values in the school system, we must live those values in our personal lives. We must live those values at home. We must live those values in our communities. But we must live those values also in the way we exercise our political choices. You can't tell me you are against corruption and you go and vote for a corrupt politician. How do you explain that to your pupils? When you were saying you must take responsibility, you also have to take responsibility as a citizen to choose the representatives who are going to promote those values that you hold dear. And fortunately for us, we don't have to go through another workshop to decide what are the values of this nation. They are all there in our Constitution. And my final request to you as our leaders, please make sure that civic education is at the center of your schools. Because what I heard from many of you talking about your journeys, clearly civic education has not been incorporated in life orientation in our schools. How many of your schools actually teach about the Constitution, the rights, the responsibilities of citizens? Because if we did, the kind of lessons that we are learning now would come so much easier to your fellow teachers and to the communities around you. I am absolutely thrilled with the work that many of you are doing of incorporating the communities around you. I believe that we together as citizens of this country must not only go on this journey towards a better South Africa, but we must take along with us on that journey our families, our pupils and fellow teachers, our communities, and I was also very impressed with the involvement of religious communities from all faiths. We all need to work together to make this country the greatest country that it is destined to be. I thank you very much.